So I heard this quote a little while back, and it's a really good one. It goes something like this: you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something: your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down and has made all the difference in my life. Steve Jobs said that. What's going on? JayAshcroft here, and today I'm going to investigate the concept of looking back in our lives and whether it's beneficial to do so or whether we should stay away from it. So let's get right into it. It is no secret that Apple is one of the greatest tech giants of all time. And if you aren't familiar with his work, Steve Jobs created the whole thing. He is Mr. Apple. So you can thank him for the iPhone or iPad or iMac that you were watching this video on. As life unfolds, not everything needs to make perfect sense all at once, which is why it's so important to have a dream that we're chasing, to learn how to trust the process. The only way any of us have arrived at whatever point we're at in life is through a series of choices that have ultimately led to the details being filled in at a later date. We don't need every single detail before we get started. We just need to get started, as long as the path is one that we are choosing. The hardest experiences of our lives are those times of change and turmoil. For me, it was that time between graduating university and starting my career as a professional photographer. So if you can imagine, it was about 7 or 8 years of anguish, fear, sadness, and borderline losing my mind, just trying to figure out what to do with my life. You see, for me, university was an amazing time in my life. I always had a girlfriend and a bunch of friends around me. I was learning and experiencing new things. I was shooting film photography and I was doing other art. I was making connections and developing friendships that would ultimately last me a lifetime. I was partying and playing and working and learning, and I felt free, more free than I ever had. And then came the big upset. You know, I studied studio art, so there's not a lot of job opportunity in that realm. We all graduated, we went our separate ways, and I was left just feeling like Van Wilder, except without the wealthy parents to keep paying my tuition indefinitely. I was lost without purpose or reason. I was just left wondering how I got to where I was at and what I was going to do next. I would run these questions through my head on repeat. I continued to try to find meaning for the next several years, but I just couldn't see my path. I couldn't find it. You know, by default, I continued to work as a maintenance worker at a campground, a job I had just had forever. And then I kind of leveled up and became an equipment operator with my older brother, working for his company. And then I worked as a carpenter with a high-end home builder and as a site supervisor for a landscaping company. I just did a whole bunch of jobs over the course of those several years. Eventually, I dropped out of college. Years later, I had tried to go to school for architectural technology, and I decided it wasn't for me. And at this point, I just had to do something. So I drove out west. I just got my truck, loaded my stuff, and I drove because I needed to truly face myself. I eventually came back home a changed man, and I began my journey as a professional photographer. So what is the point here? Well, throughout this entire confusing time, one thing was very constant. I worked really hard, like harder than anybody else around me. And I'm not even sure why. Like, it's not like it benefited me immediately or that I even enjoyed the work I was doing or the people that I was doing the work for that matter. You know, maybe I enjoyed the abuse, like it felt like doing drugs or something, you know, like something that you know isn't good for you, but you just keep doing it anyways. I was exhausted and beaten down to the ground, but I still pushed and pushed. The psychological pain was almost unbearable. I had the work ethic of a tradesman and the survival instinct of a soldier. Flashing forward to discovering my life's purpose, my real goals and my sense of direction started to come to fruition. I started to say aloud, I'm going to become a photographer. And then, you know, as time went on, not that much time actually, maybe a few months, I did become a photographer. I had somehow obtained the thing that I actually wanted. It turns out that all this time in the trenches working these crappy jobs that I didn't care about wasn't for nothing. The work ethic that I had tirelessly developed during those hard times was then taken and applied directly to my work as a photographer and filmmaker. You know, it created a really unstoppable combination of evergreen skills that I was then using to build this business up to a sustainable level. I worked tirelessly to learn everything that I needed to in order to charge clients money for photography and videography. During the period of time where I was learning how to be a photographer, I worked my day job from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. And then I went to the photo studio I was working out of by 5 p.m. and I stayed till midnight. And I would do that on repeat every single day. I wanted to do what would usually take years in a matter of months. And I wanted that because I was tired of just living a life that I wasn't enthused about. I wanted to be doing what I was meant to be doing. Now looking back, I realized then, and I still realize now, that it was my construction background that gave me the energy and the willpower to push through these learning curves. I would always catch myself saying and thinking, man, I'm so lucky to be making money with a camera right now. This is way better than waking up at 5 a.m. and climbing around on a roof to get trusses framed in. You know, the dusty, cold, muddy environments of my past really sculpted a perspective that was extremely valuable to me while I was doing what I actually wanted to be doing. You know, even further than the benefits of the work ethic that I was able to develop, there's actually some really translatable skills that I was able to adopt into my photography and filmmaking practice as well. As a carpenter, I was always super obsessive. It had to be perfect. I would be working with my dad and I'd be measuring to the 16th and he would always roll his eyes and say, it's good enough. Carpentry is quite simple. Measure, cut, screw, nail stuff together. I mean, make sure that it's solid and strong. At its core though, building is literally just straight lines and level planes of view. Now I took that concept that you would use with building, make sure it's leveled, make sure everything's straight, make sure it's strong, and I would apply it to photography and filmmaking. In the same way as I look at a wall and make sure it's level by eye, I can do this in photography. Composition has lines and angles and a lot of stuff happening with it. And I was able to use this skill that I had to really make it into a superpower of mine. I suffered through learning how to do it in carpentry for so many years that it's just become a natural thing that exists in my eye now. So if you're going through a change in life right now, and if you're feeling regret, remorse, like maybe you wasted a massive chunk of your life on something else, I promise you that you didn't. There is a reason you did it. And even further, if you're afraid to make a career change and dive into something that you actually want to be doing with your time because you don't want it to feel like you've wasted all of this effort that you put into this other thing, just stop thinking about it and dive into what you want to be doing. Life is really short, and the more time you spend not doing exactly what it is that you want to be doing, the more you're not giving your gifts to the world. You know, everything that we do is just another tool in the belt. The skills and lessons that you learn through life get taken with you wherever you go forever and ever and ever. Steve Jobs really did have it right when he said that looking back allows us to connect the dots. We're only here because of the choices that we made in the past. And if we can find it in ourselves to be optimistic and opportunistic, then we'll all find that everything we've done was for a reason. The more these realizations come about, the less we have to be afraid of. The answers tend to come to us as we need them. And I honestly revel in the fact that more and more these days, I'm catching myself realizing that something was really hard for a while because I needed to learn a specific lesson or pick up a specific coping mechanism or a hard skill or a soft skill. Everything that we do has a reason that it's happening, and it's our choice to pick that thing up and carry it along with us and use it in future situations. And that's it for this one. Do not cling too obsessively to controlling each and every situation. Let go, enjoy the game of life, and know that one day the answers are going to come to you, whether it's in a few days, a couple of months, or as many as 7, 8, or 9 years. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you again so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all the things. Have a good one.